Hi guys, so today I have 15 frugal living tips from a Polish rural village that hopefully will help save you lots of money. So I've put these together through talking to people, through experiencing life here, and obviously not everyone lives like this anymore, but still a significant amount of people do. And also some of these are generally just old-fashioned things that people used to do. So if you get anything out of this video, any tip that has been helpful for you, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up because it does really help my channel. So yeah, we have a lot to talk about, so let's kick off, shall we? Tip number 1 is preserving your own food. So pretty much everyone I know does this in Poland. So this is both things like making jams from fruit and making like fermented food. So things like pickled cucumbers, sauerkraut, and things like that. So essentially when things are in season, so for example, in the summer, people make a lot of jams because a lot of fruits tend to be in season. It helps you save money in the long term because, first of all, not only are you buying in season when things are far less expensive and more delicious, but not the point, you also aren't buying store-bought things. So it's almost like a double whammy. So essentially learning to preserve food is something that a lot of people in Poland do. And it is something that's on my list of things to learn how to do. So this year, watch this space, because I was meant to do it last year, but as you know, things got hectic. But now that I don't have a 9 to 5, I will be learning how to do this. So like I said, jams, pickles, sauerkraut, mushrooms, all that kind of stuff. Just essentially having a food pantry full of your own preserves. Now, second on the list is a little bit of a controversial one, and it's making your own alcohol. So this is something that is actually more popular in Poland than I thought it was. And by making your own alcohol, I mean both things like wine, which you're actually allowed to make at home, but also something that people call moonshine, I believe. And that actually is not legal in Poland, but from talking to people, quite a few people still do that. So it saves you a lot of money because alcohol is really expensive, right? So if you enjoy alcohol, consider learning how to make your own. I don't know what the rules are in England. I haven't researched how legal it is to make your own alcohol. So make sure that you do your own research, make your own life choices. But this is something that has been done over a long time, pretty much over generations in Poland. And when I learned that people do this, I was quite surprised, but it makes sense. So yeah, something to think about. Tip number 3. People in Poland, and especially in rural Poland, they tend to visit places like thrift stores, flea markets, and farmers markets quite often. So essentially, not only are you buying local and saving money, you are also recycling. So again, I can't believe how popular it is in rural Poland to visit these secondhand shops, to go to flea markets. There's a flea market sort of every Sunday nearby, and farmers markets, they are very, very popular. And things like orchards, like there are so many orchards around, which is crazy. So yeah, essentially buying local where possible, buying secondhand, and also sometimes haggling a little bit, which is still a bit of an old-fashioned thing, but they still do it. Tip number 4 is using wood for heating where possible. So rather than using electricity or gas, a lot of people in Poland still use coal for their heating, which is insane, but they are trying to get rid of it, just not very successfully because it's very expensive to change your whole heating system at home. So many people in these villages have like fireplaces, so essentially using wood to just help heat up a little bit rather than heating the whole home. So if that makes sense. So I do this, for example, I have a heat pump which uses electricity, and I have it set on the lowest setting. So my electricity bills are quite low. And when there are days which are very cold, or if I'm generally just a little bit colder, rather than turning up the heat pump, I just put wood in the fireplace. So this helps save money. Tip number 5 is foraging for wild food. Now, this is mega popular in rural Poland. So picking things like wild berries and wild mushrooms is extremely popular. Like, I can't do it. I have an extreme fear of ticks, and no, I hate it. Like, even walking my dog, I'm so paranoid. But honestly, it's like everyone here is obsessed with going to forage for, especially mushrooms. It's like super, super popular. And then you eat them. So it's essentially free, and then you make lots of things with them. So you can make like sauces, you can make preserves. So a lot of people like them in like vinegar or oil or whatever they make it with. I don't know, I hate eating and picking them, but it is quite a popular thing, and like I said, it's free, and then you have it as food. Keeping with that theme, growing your own food. So when you're driving around in rural Poland, you will see that so many people have at least a greenhouse. So yes, a lot are generally like farmers and have big farmlands and stuff like that, but actually just the normal person, average person, has some sort of greenhouse in their backyard. So obviously they're not going to grow all of their food, but things that are like fairly easy to grow, people tend to grow. And yes, it's a lot of work, but it saves you money, and it's usually a little bit more delicious. So yeah, even if you can do a little bit of growing your own, even if you live in an apartment, try growing on your windowsill or your balcony if you have one. It definitely makes a difference. Number 7, reusing things rather than using disposables. So what I mean by that is, firstly, the obvious things like, I don't know, shopping bags, but also some less convenient things, such as cloth diapers, for example. So this used to be a lot more popular back in the old days, but cloth diapers essentially save you tons of money because you're not constantly buying the plastic waste that is plastic diapers. So a little bit gross, but you just clean them and then put the diapers on like a high wash, and it ends up being more economical for both your purse and the planet. So something to consider if you have children. I need to hurry because my battery is running out. Number 8, something that is hugely popular in rural Poland, and that is commuting by bike. So many people here, especially the older people, because I feel like a lot of the younger generations now, they do have cars. But actually, even when someone has a car, quite often if they can go somewhere by bike, they will opt for the bike. So again, better for the environment and better for your purse because you're not spending money on petrol, which is insanely expensive now. So I'm planning to buy a bike this year because that was my plan from the beginning. Generally, I knew that a lot of people here commute by bike, and I was planning not to have a car. I ended up buying one because, you know, I have a lot of animals and taking them to the vet on a bike would have been a nightmare. So, I mean, that's not the only reason, but like as an example. But actually, if I'm just going down the road to the shops, I could just go by bike and save myself the trip in the car. So something to consider is getting a bike and doing as much of your commuting by bike as you can. Next is rainwater harvesting. So this is essentially for the purpose of, for example, watering your garden, watering the things that you're growing to eat, but it can serve other purposes. So you could use that rainwater, for example, to flush the toilet and save water. So multiple uses. Water isn't always the cheapest. So figuring out even some sort of small rainwater catchment system will be beneficial. Next is raising chickens. So perhaps not something you can do in the city, but generally a lot of people, I drive around and I'm like, so many people have chickens, like it's crazy. But it makes sense because they give you eggs. So rather than buying eggs in the supermarket, they just have their own eggs, and chickens are actually a pretty good pest control in the garden as well. I would love to have my own chickens. Not sure how the cats and dogs would react to them, but chickens eat ticks. So there's something to consider if you live in a place with ticks. But yes, a lot of people have chickens, which some people use for meat as well, but I'm not suggesting that. But for me, the whole egg thing is amazing because then you have free eggs. And a lot of chickens eat like kitchen scraps and things that they find in the garden, like worms and stuff. So you don't actually have to spend a lot of money on keeping the chickens. So yes, it's not free, but over time it works out cheaper. The next one is reusing water generally. So for example, putting a bowl under the sink, catching the water that you're washing your hands with, and generally using that to flush the toilet. So that's one example, and just something to consider. Is there a way that you can reuse some of the water that you are using? In Japan, they have very fancy toilets for this, but in rural Poland, just stick a bowl under the sink and just do it that way. Number 12 is cloth rags. So paper towels, less common. A lot of people use use cloth rags for things like cleaning because it makes more sense financially. You're not just essentially throwing your money away, but also you can reuse old clothes to do this. So once a piece of clothing is just unusable, rather than throwing it away, make rags out of it to clean with, because that way you're saving even more money. Number 13 is multi-family member households or multi-family households. I don't know what to call it, but essentially what I mean is it is fairly common for multiple generations to live in one household with their partners. So for example, a grandmother and her daughter with her husband and their children all living in one house. It is super, super common, and people tend to do that pretty much until they have enough money to either buy or build their own house. So that's what happens now. Obviously back in the day, it just used to be normal to just have that as a general thing. So quite often you would, for example, have one house, but two entrances. And for example, the top floor was like the younger members of the family, so like the daughter with the husband and children, and then the bottom floor is like the grandparents. And oh my God, so many people here, so many people do this. Like I know more multi-family households than I know people who live on their own. So definitely a good way of saving money. Because you're not only saving money on rent, you're also saving money on like heating and things. So yes. Number 14, using a basket to shop. And what I mean is like your own basket. I don't mean the shop basket. I mean your own basket. So even I have purchased one now. And it's basically you go in with your basket and you're limited to that basket. So you don't end up overbuying. And you don't waste money on plastic bags, for example. Yeah, I see this a lot, is people shopping with their own baskets. And finally, the last one on the list is drying your clothes on a line outside or on a clothing rack inside. So I didn't see a lot of this in England. I think it's more of an American thing, but I also think the more like modern we become, the more these clothes dryers are becoming more common, if you will. So this is something that generally not many people in sort of rural places would do. They would just always hang clothes on a line. Okay, that is it. My battery is on 5%, so just in time. Like I said, if you found anything here useful, please give this video a thumbs up. If you have any other tips that you think are worth mentioning, then please comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you've made it this far, and I'll see you next time. Bye.